most founders fundraise serially. So they talk to investor A, and they talk to investor B, and they talk to investor C, and then D, and it takes a lot of time, right? And then the problem is that at some point you kind of talk to investor A, maybe gets interested, but you just talk to D, and D is like, yo, I can't write you a term sheet. I literally met you like 2 days ago. Like, sorry, dude, right? Like, I just can't do it. So really, and this is what we were saying, is you want to pack it as tightly as possible, is you want to do it in parallel. So you're trying to like start the clock on everybody at the same time so that you can push them. So if I met investor A and investor D at the same time on the same day, and investor A is like, hey, I want to present you to the partners, I can go to investor D and be like, hey, we're moving along with some of the other investors. If you're interested, I recommend that we kind of like move along a little bit, right? And so you want to be able to create this like time pressure on people. I'll talk about the information kind of flow a little bit too. All investors talk to each other, especially in Southeast Asia. The VC community in Southeast Asia is really small and really tight, and everybody talks to each other. So if you do it serially, investor D will be like, oh, they probably talked to investor A, and we'll like call investor A and be like, hey, did you guys talk to them? What do you guys think? Right? And that doesn't really work in founders kind of like favor. And so what you're really looking for is like, you don't want investor A and investor D to collaborate. You want them to compete. And so if you're kind of talking to them all at the same time, then this kind of like works a little bit better. And so you want to put them all on the same clock. I'll say one more thing about information flow here. When you're putting pressure on VCs and you're talking about, hey, we're moving forward with other VCs and that kind of stuff, you don't have to tell them everything. You don't have to tell them what investors you've talked to. You don't have to tell them what investors, like what stage you are at with those investors. You don't have to do that. They may ask, and then you don't have to answer them. And you can be quiet. You can be like, oh yeah, we're moving. There's a couple of investors that are quite serious. Like, you don't have to. And the reason why it's sometimes helpful to not do this is information asymmetry is something that you as a founder can have as leverage, and you can use that. And so just leave it to people to kind of like be what it is. One of my favorite like small, it's not quite dark arts, but it's like small kind of hacks here that our companies now kind of do. They do this parallel process. They book 6 calls with investors in the same day. And then they book them back to back, 30 minutes each. And basically, if one of the calls, if like, let's say the first call runs a little bit long and they go to the second call, they basically will show up into that second call and they'll be like, I'm sorry for being a few minutes late. I'm back to back on investor calls all this week. So, we're kind of trying to do the best you can. The low key subtle thing that you're basically kind of like telling investors by saying that is there's a lot of investor interest. And so I'm talking to a lot of them. And so you're just like one of the 7 I'm talking to today. Investors are human beings. They fall for psychological tricks. Everybody who wants to invest in the founder that is talking to all the other ones. It's being like the most attractive person in the room, and everybody kind of knows that they just like want to talk to that person. And so it doesn't actually matter how attractive you actually are if everybody thinks you're attractive. And so they honestly just do this. And Brian is kind of like told me stories too of like, if you are talking to this one like investor, and then let's say you got to leave so that the other one is waiting, you can literally be like, hey, I'm really sorry. This is a really good conversation. I would love to continue it. I've got to go. I'm back to back. I'm talking to, I don't know if you want to kind of like do this, but like be like talking to Sequoia next. Like I got to go. So, let me know if you're kind of interested. I would love to talk to you more, and then move off. Right. So you're trying to kind of build some of this psychological kind of like stuff here. Lots of somewhat dark arts and gray arts that we can do here. But as a founder, that's what you're trying to build. You want to build this FOMO, you want to build this urgency.